The Casio G-Shock GW-9400 is the biggest G-Shock I've ever owned by far, and it's also one of the biggest in their entire lineup. But with its insanely rugged build and triple sensor function that it offers without needing to pair with a phone or use Bluetooth, it's also one of the most functional and capable standalone G-Shocks that there is. The rangeband's been on my wrist for about 3 weeks now, and I've really grown to love it. Let me show you the build, talk about the features and the function that it offers, and I'll tell you who I think this watch is best suited for. Welcome to Sneaky Pete's Product Reviews. The Rangeman GW-9400 is part of Casio's Master of G series, and the watches in this lineup are supposed to be the toughest and most rugged G-Shocks that you can get. Just looking at the watch, you can see that's the case, with its thick but balanced resin shell, stainless steel case back and button pushers, and then its thick double locking strap. Looking at the screw-down stainless steel case back, you'll see this cool cat-looking creature who seems to be wearing a compass, along with the watch-specific info and the module stamping. On the top of the strap it says Tough Solar, and then when you look around the rim of the face, you'll see the Tough Solar panel. So this means that you don't need to worry about charging or changing the battery of the watch. People say these will last 10 to 15 years, some people say they last forever, but regardless, when it has Tough Solar, battery's not an issue. On the face you'll see Water Resist 20 bar, meaning you can take this 200 meters below the surface if you're so inclined, and it also says Multi-Band 6. So that means this has the atomic timekeeping. It's going to automatically sync the time to one of these atomic clocks every single night, meaning that the watch is automatically going to keep itself in perfect time once it gets that sync for the first time. For some reason I don't get the sync nearly as strong as on my Square G-Shock. That one gets the sync every single night, whereas this seems to get it every third or fourth night for some reason. I really like the face on this watch. It has a large diameter dial which is easy to read, although I wish the time was a little bit bigger on it, and it also features this circular motion graphic display, as well as a multi-level display which allows you to see more information at the same time. The circular display is not only used to do things like show direction when you're in the compass mode, or show the difference between two time zones when you're in world time mode. It's also used to do things like count the seconds when you're in the main display, or in stopwatch mode, so it's just cool activity on the face, it gives it a little more life, and it's a cool inclusion. The face displays the time, the date, as well as the day of the week. But by pressing this upper left E button, you can swap the day of the week with a barometric pressure graph to help you better predict the weather, which I find much more interesting to look at than just a standard day of the week. The face also gives you watch status information, like if your alarm is on, auto light is on, if it's muted, or if it's in power save mode, as well as a visual indicator in the top left of the main face, which will let you know if the watch has recently synced with the atomic clock or not. It's going to be on there if it did, and it's not going to be on there if it hasn't. Alongside the white text, it also says Rangeman in red, and that same red carries through to the design elements and accents on the face, as well as on the sensor button itself. The metal buttons or pushers are large and knurled, so they're going to have really good grip. This is going to be really easy if you're wearing gloves or if your hands are wet, and I find the buttons very easy to access and press. The GW94 has 6 buttons in total. You get the standard 4 at the corners that you're used to seeing on G-Shocks, but you also get a dedicated light button front and center, which I really like, and then another dedicated button for the triple sensor. Along with the dedicated light button, the Rangeman also has an auto light mode, which is going to automatically turn the light on if you're in the dark when you turn your wrist to 40 degrees or not. You can also set the time to 1.5 or 3 seconds, so when you press the light, it's either going to come on for 1.5 or for 3 seconds. The auto light on the Rangeman is a little bit different. You don't turn on the settings like you normally do, you turn it on with the light button. Just hold that light button for 3 to 4 seconds, then you're going to see the little LT come on to let you know that the auto backlight is either on or off, and you do both on or off by holding that button. You could argue that the build on the Rangeman is a little bit overkill for most people on a day-to-day basis, but isn't that kind of the point of G-Shocks? That's part of the fun of G-Shocks, is to be over-engineered, and I would way rather find myself prepared and not need it than find myself needing one of these functions and not being prepared. The Casio GW-9400 Rangeman is a big, beefy watch. There is no getting around that. I was a little hesitant to try something this large, but after spending a few weeks with it, I must say it wears better than I thought it would. The bigger the watch, the more you're going to notice it when you bend your hand back like this, especially if you wear it high up. But after having it for a few weeks, I find I don't really do that much unless I'm testing the watch to see how much it kind of gets in the way. It will definitely catch on long sleeves though, much more so than any of my other G-Shocks. So if you're wearing this with a tight long sleeve, you kind of have to make the decision if you want this out of your sleeve or under your sleeve, as it's not just going to go back and forth easily. I've wore the Rangeman from sunrise to sunset multiple days in a row, and having done that, I must say it's actually quite a comfortable watch to wear, and I've even kind of grown to like this large size. With how large the watch is, the Rangeman is surprisingly light, weighing in at only 93 grams. I don't find that it feels heavy or bulky on my wrist, it's just physically large. The case itself is 55.2 millimeters at its widest point, and it has a case height of a substantial 18.2 millimeters. G-Shocks do not come much larger than this, so if you can handle the Rangeman on your wrist, you should be able to handle any other G-Shock easily. Having the additional features that this module offers, the split display, the extra buttons, as well as the triple sensor, just necessitates the watch having a larger case. So you're buying the Rangeman for its capabilities, not for its slim profile. The resin strap of the Rangeman is one of the reasons that it's so comfortable to wear. It's long enough to fit pretty much anyone, and the way it fits the wrist makes it stay in place comfortably without sliding around too much. You get a double pin strap rather than the usual single pin. It's a more rugged clasp for this rugged watch, but you also get double the holes in this strap, which helps to add more airflow to keep you cooler. It has a metal closure to match the metal clasp, with nice G-Shock branding on it, just in case you forget what you're wearing. The 3410 module on the Rangeman keeps time to an accuracy of plus or minus 15 seconds a month, which is awesome, but keep in mind that's only if you don't do the atomic time sync, otherwise then it's going to be completely accurate. Let's have a closer look at this 3410 module and talk about in general what the Rangeman does. With the Rangeman, you get all the standard functions you're used to seeing in G-Shocks, but it also adds a couple of new surprises as well. You get a world time with 31 time zones, and one of the things I like about the Rangeman is when you're in these other functions like the world time, it still displays your time in that slightly darker center bar. It also utilizes the circular display as a 24-hour clock, and this shows you how far the world time zone you have selected is from the current time zone that you're in, which is a cool detail. Next, you get a 1/100th of a second stopwatch with split time and first and second place finisher, but one of the really cool things about this watch is you can start your stopwatch directly with one button from your home face. Pressing the bottom right or A button from the home face will directly start the stopwatch. This is a great feature. For me, I wish this would start the timer, as I personally use that feature more, but this is a really cool inclusion and more useful to the target audience this watch is really created for. Next, you get a proper 24-hour countdown timer, which really should be the standard, and in this mode it utilizes the circular display to count down 60-minute segments should your timer be greater than an hour. After that, you get the alarm mode, and you get 4 alarms as well as a snooze alarm. The snooze is going to go multiple times if you don't go into the settings and turn it off, so that's kind of the standard G-Shock features, but here's where it starts to get interesting. The Rangeman features a sunrise-sunset mode, and not only will this tell you the sunrise and sunset today, but you can also use the A and C buttons to go back and forth to get the sunrise and sunset data for any day in the future or the past, which is really handy. When you first set up the watch, not only does it ask you for your home city, but it also wants you to fill in your longitude and latitude. It does this because it gets the accurate sunset data for your specific location, because sometimes your home city might be in the same time zone, but you could be 8 hours north. It's a really cool way that it does this to give you the most accurate information that it can. The circular display acts like a 24-hour clock, and this shows you a visual representation of the sunrise, sunset, and your current time, which will be flashing. I love little details like this, and it's one of the reasons I like this watch so much. Next, you have the recall function, and this serves a few different purposes. The first thing that you can do is save up to 40 memory logs, and this will record the sensor data coupled with the time and date you recorded it. So if you're in the compass, this will record the compass data, and if you're in the altimeter, it'll record the altimeter data, and so on. The recall will automatically log your highest and lowest elevation point, which it calls max and min, as well as your total ascent or descent. This is great for anyone who hikes or does climbing, as you get some stats to help verify just how hard you worked out. The last mode this will take you to is the received mode, and that's going to tell you the last time the watch was able to successfully sync with that atomic clock signal. If you want to attempt to force a manual sync, just hold the A button and the watch will do its best to sync, though I find this is only ever possible at night or super early in the morning. As this watch has a lot of functions, if you don't want to go through them all and you just want to go back to your main time, just hold that mode button. It's going to automatically jump back to your main face. So there's your 3410 module, but with the Rangeman GW-9400, you get the version 3 triple sensor, and that's what really sets this G-Shock apart from the typical offering. I would really advise reading the manual in detail so that you can get a full grasp of exactly what these sensors offer, but I want to go over them in an abridged version with you. Now, the triple sensor is what they call an ABC sensor, meaning altimeter, barometer, and compass. The barometer not only measures air pressure, but it also measures the temperature, so it's sort of a dual-use sensor. In terms of using the sensor, whatever mode you're in, you can jump right to the triple sensor at any time by pressing the B or the sensor button to the right of the watch, and that will retain the last mode that you had it in. So if you were last in compass, when you press that button, it's going to jump directly to compass. As long as you don't have the watch in mute mode, it'll either beep 1, 2, or 3 times when you press that triple sensor button. For example, the barometer mode is a triple beep. So that means you can have an audio cue that's going to let you know what mode you're in without looking at the watch. Single, double, triple, back to our regular watch. Your first beep is the altimeter, and the altimeter is used to measure your altitude. In the lower section, it'll show you your current altitude. Just above that, you'll see your current time, and in the upper window, it'll show you your altitude differential. When you press the lower right or A button in altimeter mode, it'll take a current reading and set the altitude differential at 0, and then that number will go up or down depending on your change in altitude. If you prefer, you can press the upper left or E button, and that's going to switch between a number and a bar graph. The bar graph is going to visually show you the changes in altitude rather than just seeing a single number altitude differential reading. If you want to use that recall function and save a point in time here, hold the upper right or C button until it saves, and then that data point will be saved in the recall section for you to check out later. Pressing the sensor button again will give you a double beep, and that'll take you to compass mode. And of course, a compass is used for helping you determine direction or to follow a direction. In the bottom section, you get a numerical value of your bearing. Above that, you see your current time. And then in the upper section, you see the written orientation. So it can say north or north-northwest. It's quite granular in the info. In the circular display, you'll get a wider triple line that points to north, and then single lines to represent the other compass points. One of my favorite things about the compass is its ability to lock to a direction or to a bearing, so it can help you find your way back later. For example, if I orient the watch and myself to my car before I start a hike, then I can press the lower right or A button to lock in that numerical bearing. Then if I get lost, I just need to follow that same direction to eventually end up back at my starting point. You can follow the numerical value to arrive at your starting point, or in the circular display, it will show you a single line representing your current direction, and then the larger triple line will represent where you want to go. If you're outdoors and you're setting a really important bearing, I would also recommend saving that data so that you can go back and use the recall function to see what it is, just in case you accidentally erase it. This could really save your bacon, and it's a handy feature that they have. Finally, we get to our triple beep, or barometer function, and this is probably my favorite thing about the watch. Barometers work by measuring air pressure, and they track the changes in air pressure, which can be used to help determine if the weather's going to be getting better or be getting worse. Generally, if the graph is looking like a great stock pick or up and to the right, that means the weather should be changing for the better. If it's heading down and to the right though, you might be in for a spell of bad weather. Between the graph and your pressure reading, it also displays your current temperature, which I love. But keep in mind, it's designed to take off your wrist to get the most accurate reading, and they say take it off for 15 minutes for perfect accuracy. As an alternative though, you can just calibrate the temperature when you know the accurate temperature outside when it's on your wrist, so it's going to take into account your body. Of course, you shouldn't do this, you should just keep it the way it is, but I find it to be very accurate when I've calibrated it like this. You can also hold the A button to turn on or off the barometric pressure change indicator, meaning you'll get a visual and audio notification if the watch senses a rapid change in pressure. Essentially, this is supposed to alert you in advance of an upcoming weather change, and if you're using this out and about in the field, that could be super handy. One thing to keep in mind, if you have that barometric pressure indicator selected, the watch will not do the automatic sync. If that's on, it doesn't sync. Overall, I'm liking the Rangeman a great deal more than I expected to. It's just such a large, industrial, hardcore looking watch, and I didn't think I'd see myself wearing it much after my review, but this will definitely be joining my regular rotation, as I love the big beefy design and the upgraded capabilities. This watch will definitely fulfill your fidget spinner desires, meaning it has enough information and stuff to do to keep you occupied for short periods of time, but the information that it has is actually useful. I get up early, so I really appreciate the sunrise and sunset data, and then the inclusion of the triple sensor is a total game changer. I would consider the triple sensor more of a reference tool. I mean, if you need this for survival in the wild, I would get a dedicated tool for each function, but to have this built into your wristwatch and work as good as it does is incredibly useful. For some people, the Rangeman may simply be too large for their wrist, but I find it actually incredibly wearable for a watch of this size, and that really comfortable strap makes wearing it all day a breeze. I wish the watch received the atomic clock signal as good as my other multiband 6 models do, and I wouldn't complain if they could knock a millimeter or two off of the case height, but for what the Rangeman offers, it is a welcome addition to my collection and an obvious choice for me whenever I'm going to partake in activities that take me well outside of the comforts of home. Also, keep in mind, the Rangeman does everything that it does with no smartphone integration. So there's no Bluetooth, you don't have to download an app, the Rangeman does everything it does completely standalone in watch. If you're interested in picking up a Rangeman, check out the links down below in our description. We get a small affiliate commission if you choose to use one of those links, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. Thanks so much for watching this review, I really hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon for another one.